Well, that must have been an amazing sight to see that
And
many
just like
airplanes in the air
tonight,
at one time.
we was in a hedgerow
150,
like this.
250 airplanes at one time in the sky.
There was hedgerows over in France when we first got off the beach like this, and that's what marked off the people's land. They grew hedges. And we went into this place and run our trucks around
There's a
like
black
this.
stone right here. What is this for? It's
And
used.
then the captain said, look at it and say, post a guard. Well, we had guards, 2 guards over here, and these were all truck drivers. Guard down here, guard here, 2 over here. Well, that night, and everybody was spooky.
This is
They would go on the edge. These guys
For
had
slides.
Thompson machine gun, truck drivers. So we all
Makes
stuck
color
under our
slides.
trucks.
All right, give me some at a time.
And instead of digging holes. Well, all of a sudden, kapow! Down at this end. Then we heard somebody mumbling, then all of a sudden, kapow! Pow! 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 And the first shot went off, I was laying flat on my back. I raised up and hit the transmission of that truck. Boy, I tell you, it like knocked me silly.
Under that truck's not a place to get if they
And the
start
officer
strafing
says,
now.
go see what... The officer wouldn't go, he just
They
said somebody
shoot
else.
you.
We crawled around there and asked this guy, I said, what did you see? He said, somebody shooting over here. We crawled around there and said, what did you see? He said, somebody was shooting over here. And that's what every one of them told us. One of them thought he heard something, and so he fired. The other sentry down here heard it, so they was firing back and forth at each other.
Look there, give me some limbs. Thank you.
Oh, when they get spooked like that, that's dangerous.
And then we moved on up to another field, and that's where one of our guards, one of them shot one of the guys that wandered out, and what he had done, he was out chasing these fireflies, and he pulled him over his foot. The guy asked him, halt! But he didn't say, who goes there? He said, halt, bam! And he shot him right through the
What in the
shoulder.
world was he chasing fireflies for?
Well, they asked him, our commanding officer said, what was you doing? He said, well, I was trying to catch some fireflies. I want to see what time it was. He's holding over.
He paid for it, didn't he?
There was some sad things, there was some funny things like that, but I'll never forget though when they strafed us. We got up in the plants, and that morning, and we dug our hole in there. We was going to have a hot breakfast. And all the trucks were backed up, and it was a thorny hedgerow right here. Trucks like this, radio trucks. And this plane, we heard it. When we know the sound of it. We hear it go. He kind of slowed down. You know he's getting ready to come in. Then you go. Then you hear. Well, I jumped up out of my hole and looked, and that's the time I said, well, I ain't digging no more holes. I dug all the flams before in Germany. I'm tired of it. And I said, well, I guess I'll dig a square one. I dug a square one. And I jumped down that hole, and I just like this, and the top of my shoulder was even with the thing there. And I got to thinking about them, a 20mm shell coming off those wing guns, and I figured that wasn't deep enough. But then I looked up by that time, and I saw these, it was all the things you see at one time, just a flag. These guys had headed toward the mess line, and they had these mess
kits.
They looked like a bunch of silver wing ducks. And then I looked over to the lieutenant, this little sissy lieutenant, he dug his hole. He's the one that should have slept in pajamas. And he moved a little quarter-ton truck trailer over his dugout.
Yeah.
The officers had pushed that thing out of the way, and they jumping in, he was pushing them out.
Sleeping in pajamas in the wall?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Why? You afraid he might miss his clothes?
He was so dumb, they couldn't find nothing else to do, they made him a mail clerk. He went and got our mail. He's the one also that ordered us to put camouflage netting on our trucks. OD netting, and we was out in the middle of a snowfield. There's 40 trucks lined up in a line, and he's putting tan and green and brown netting over
We was not moving to Vietnam.
It's white field.
That's like wearing a sheet in Vietnam.
But he was one of the books over there. He went by us, so you so there.
She don't cover with the snow. Instead with camouflage.
He was brilliant.
Stupid.
Did he last the war?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. Then Sergeant Timmons, he was the other, he went nuts, and he had them doing police duty, and they was shelling us with 88s. He was out there having the men pick up cigarette butts. His mind snapped.
I'm
Leave
afraid
it
I
like
wouldn't
you
have
found it.
minded him.
Oh, there was some.
Well, war brings out the best and the worst of everybody.
Pop, how did the civilians treat you over there? Like, were they glad to see you, or did they treat you bad?
Well, a lot of the places they were, and a lot of it was just a sham, you know. It was a thing to do, and I would have done it too, you know. You know what they say.
Well, I don't imagine the Germans were too tickled to see you.
Yeah.
Didn't have too much contact with Germans. It was mostly French. And some English had lived over there prior to it. But the thing is that you never could trust exactly. Then now, like the place we stayed in Luxembourg, they assigned us sergeants to live in the buildings with families. And we would get the families like coal through the army, and we'd give the kids our chocolate rations, and we'd bring our coffee rations and give that to the lady. Whatever we could, and she would pull it together and cook food for all of us.
Yeah.
It was a man, his wife, and his daughter, and his son stayed in Luxembourg. Now they treat us all right, and the people in Luxembourg could speak 4 languages, including English, because they're between Belgium and France and Germany and some other countries.
Well, did they have a national language? Their own language?
Flemish.
Oh, okay. All right.
But now, we encountered some Germans.
Wasn't that what they speak in Belgium?
Well, it's not exactly the same thing. It's very close to it because it's a combination. German.
Flanders.
I use
Isn't it
coffee.
Flemish.
Yeah, but isn't there a Flanders language? Flemish and Flanders?
No, Flemish. It's Belgique and part Dutch, French.
Is Luxembourg still a country?
Huh?
Is Luxembourg still a country? You never hear nothing.
See, we printed their money. It's a small country.
Well, isn't Latvia and all those countries, isn't that what used to be called Prussia?
No.
I thought it was.
That's near the Baltic. Estonia, Latvia, and there's 3 of them. I can't think of
Lithuania.
Lithuania. But Prussia is over in the northern part, you know. Like, if you look at Germany, see, like here's Hamburg over here, the North Sea, and across from Denmark, and near Denmark, and going over to the east. And that's Prussia.
Oh, along the
See,
coast.
and then Germany used to be divided into states or provinces, like parishes, counties. And each of these was a little kingdom into itself. So they consolidated. Oh, Hindenburg, I believe, one of them, you know, did that.
Well, did you hear that the Germans are moving their capital back to Berlin from Bonn?
I tell you, it's all over again.
No, well, you just asked me if I want coffee. I said, yeah.
I didn't hear you.
I said, yes.
I didn't hear you.
She didn't say she was going to get it for you. She just asked you, did you want some? You assumed.
You agree.
Yeah.
How about if I dream I hit you?
Oh, a threat.
You better be dreaming.
And I might add a recorded threat. And I might add a recorded
That was
threat.
an implied.
Okay. Recorded threat. Ask something else.
That was implied, not inferred.
Pop, will you tell Steve about that time you took shelter in that baseball dugout when that bomb came down?
Yeah, that's what I was telling them a while ago. It was an incendiary bomb that hit, but they didn't explode. It just hit.
Well, did they have napalm in World War II?
Not in our theater. The Russians had it. They burned out all the
Or did
Germans.
they just use that in the tank?
They used that in tanks. The tank
Flamethrowers?
they had flamethrowers, but they
Did
didn't
she
use
cook this thing?
they didn't use it as much in our theater as they did over in the Pacific. But the Russians used it when they went through Germany. I mean, the Germans used it when they went through Russia. They burned them in I had that book that I gave on for Irvin. It shows them where they burned in their foxholes.
But they didn't use any gas or anything like that.
No.
Pop ever told you about the time that he won a case of soft drinks when he was moving?
Hey, John, he made me laugh.
Look like he's falling out.
Well, I know that a lot of the aircraft, they're 20 millimeters, they could fire high explosives. with those, and that's what they used against the bombers. When the Messerschmitts went against the bombers.
I mean, every
fifth.
field was incendiary. And see, they also, I could pick up some wooden 20mm slugs that they use for practice to conserve the metal. And I picked up some 20mm and 7.6 or whatever.
Well, they didn't have a bazooka like we had. Theirs was an RPG, a rocket-propelled grenade, wasn't it, that went on the end of their tube?
Like ours.
Well, ours was a bazooka where you actually put the rocket inside.
We had rocket launchers.
But theirs was more like a tube, a lot like the Viet Cong used, I think, where it stuck on the end of it, didn't it?
No, most of the things, see, their main rifle was a 88. And also the main rifle used in the in World War I. What they did was originally an anti-aircraft rifle. And then they mounted it on their tanks. And it was supported.
Oh, you're talking about the big gun?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about a Mauser.
Well, no, it's a rifle because it has a long barrel. Anti-flash on it, you know. But this was such a success in World War I, they adapted it and modified it, and then they put it on the tank.
Yeah, it was bigger than any of our
It was high
guns.
velocity and it was very smaller than anything we had.
Yeah.
The only thing is that when it hit something, it was like the Luger, it went through, it had no impact. I mean, it would go right through the tank of ours.
Yeah.
And I mean, just like we found
Well,
one
they had a lot more range
where
than
the
ours.
driver sat, it took his head off, everything went right through from front to back. Big armor.
They had a show on
But
the
what
other
ours
night
had hit,
about
and if
the
it could
tanks.
penetrate their armor, it swirled around there and killed everybody.
Yeah. Well, we had to get a lot closer to hit them and to be effective with our rounds, with our guns.
Yeah.
Because their tanks were faster and they had the 88s on the bigger gun and they had more range. But ours could, if they got in a close enough position, they could take them out.
They moved fast too.
Except for the King Tiger, I think that once they
I sure
developed
thought
that,
that they had us messed up there and I thought they.
I think to me that would be one of the most terrifying things, be going up against tanks.
Well, that's what we worked against, see. Our mission as a radio intelligence company
But you can't fight this
was
stupid
one
thing.
to each army, and our mission was to gain, to get intelligence. That is, it was primarily against tanks, and we were a outfit that worked with the Army, the Air Corps, the Navy, anybody. Wherever it was assigned to, but we was primarily serving either through headquarters, and I was attached to headquarters, or sometimes some special unit, but we were third Army. And this was one unit for the third Army. And we got intelligence on tanks. How many there were, how many was in a net, the radio net, where they were, that's what our direction finders are, that's trying to old ancient radar. And we plotted them on a map. This is where they are. But like in the Battle of Bullets, I thought we might get trapped there. We had no business. Our company had no business there because it was too close.
Well, that line was moving quite a bit too,
Well,
back and forth.
in front of us, it was 7 miles away. On this side, it was 3 or 3.5 miles away. On this side, it was 4 or 5 miles. And we were fighting for an inch, I mean a point. It was a ceiling. And when we finally got to that point, we went up on the top of a, this was Trier, Germany, T-R-I-E-R, Trier. And it was right above a big river. I forgot what the name of the river was, I took a picture of that. But this castle was held by the Germans. And that's where I met some of the first, no, not the first men, but the ones where I got to talk and went to any of them that had been in the fight. This was a half track, and that thing was shot to pieces. And they've been fighting from the very first in the Bull, the Battle of Bull. That was that day I saw them boys, they were drunk as skunk. They ain't going night and day. And then without food, just about without water, and just about out of ammunition. And finally went to break King. And then they captured this castle, looked like a castle to me. And that's where I got killed one time there because of
Booby trap. Well, were y'all primarily trying to pick up tank transmissions or just any kind of military transmission?
tank. All we worked against tank. But in the course of it, there was something, like, we had all the receivers working, and these guys are fanning across.
Isn't that how much you
the
put?
net,
No, I put 3/4 of
frequencies on the German.
We'll take out 1/4.
But those that were assigned to tanks. And we were trained for that. We know their Q signals, everything. That's what I did up in Virginia.
Maybe it won't be too
Isolated.
strong.
And when we'd fan across something, in every half hour and on the hour, there'd be a message from headquarters. They're on the headquarters, come by and pick up all our traffic.
Well, how many units did y'all have? Because y'all had to triangulate on transmission.
Well, you see, our company is divided up, headquarters,
We're weakening it down.
motor, let's see what you call it, receiver. Well, there was a platoon that had nothing to do except receive messages. Then the direction finder platoon. After they found something the headquarters wanted, they'd say put 6 or 7 sets on this frequency to be sure they got the message. They'd pick up the message and they would decode it. Then they would phone back to our officer on duty and say, assign this frequency to the direction finder. Well, theoretically, the direction finder was supposed to be on a 25-mile baseline. See? And it'd be at least 3 of them.
Yeah.
And they say, assign this frequency. And when we match that frequency by radio or wire, we also hooked up by wire each other. When everybody was on the same frequency and had the same signal, because we'd be matching against what we heard from headquarters, back at our headquarters. We all had it. Then each of these would take a bearing. Well, these sets were already on the north, you know, and on the map.
Well, y'all weren't picking up voice transmissions, were you? Or was it just radio signal?
It was all
On a
about
frequency.
modulated.
Okay.
No, it wasn't all modulated. We were picking up both.
Back up.
Picking up signal and modulation, and voice modulation. But they don't do that.
Well, how did you know whether it was tank or what kind of transmission?
Because of the type of traffic we receive. See, I like
What do you mean traffic? Voice traffic or?
is messages, it's called traffic.
I ain't gonna put on makeup though, I don't feel like.
They were in groups of, say, a series of 4 letters. And you'd say, maybe there was a page like this. And one line would have group of 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, depending on the length of the message. It'd be all the letters in the alphabet.
So you're just picking up the wireless transmissions from the tanks themselves
Yeah,
and homing in on them.
some of this, you could tell, it was sounded just like it was coming off the machine because they were good operators. They're just as methodical and he would
Well, was
just,
it key?
Yeah.
So they were sending key wireless?
See, high speed is when you use this one sideways. The other is this way. The old slow magnum, that's what they all use. But when we was in Virginia, they had captured documents which told what Q signals, what their Q signals were, what they meant for radio. You
So
know,
they transmitted in
like
code.
QRS, a QRT, QRP. We knew that this meant a whole lot of instructions. We learned that, but the other thing to recognize was the preambles. Like a letter is broken down in, like you call it, address and salutation and so forth, and then the message. The whole thing was called moving traffic. It was traffic. It was moving over there.
Well, but still, how would you know that's an A or an R? Wouldn't they be doing it in German?
International.
Oh, international code?
I've been meaning to tell you since you come. Donnie had Hodgkin's disease.
Donnie
And,
Trussell?
One he said he had to take chemo. He took it from March to August. Said he lost his hair and lost a lot of weight. But said he's in remission now and he's doing pretty good. And Randall Page and his wife had a girl, a boy 16, and a girl 12, and they divorced. And Richard's daughter divorced, and she's got a baby of 18 months, and Doctor fell and broke her rib. And all of this is just back here.
Great.
I said, look like so many I heard.
Who'd you hear from?
Dr. Pate and Juanita.
Oh.
And my cousin died Saturday, and I said it just seemed like every time I got news it was bad.
Yeah.
No, going back to your code, Morse code was international. Whether it was this country, Germany, China, any of them, if Morse was international.
You'll still they'd be transmitting in German though.
they weren't transmitting the text in English or German, not in clear text. That's called clear text.
So it was code.
It was coded.
Okay.
That's why I was telling you it was in groups of 4. Now sometimes it's in groups of 5, but not the tanks. Air Corps had a different preamble. When we heard certain things in the preamble, we knew whether it was artillery or whether it was.
Well, that's what I was wondering. How did you distinguish between Luftwaffe
All right,
artillery?
when we heard the preamble,
Tank.
we could expect, say, tanks, to confirm it, to see what the code groups, how they appear. Because it's different from the Air Corps and so forth. And then what signals they use in the preamble and the ending of the message. And we didn't know whether it was important or not. But then if we heard, like it was call letters in there too. But say if we heard, say 5 call letters, different ones, we could tell by the signal strength, because when we started copying the message, we also put down what we observed. Frequency so and so, we marked it on paper. Signal strength, we'd say SR5 or whatever it was. We put all this pertinent detail, and then we could tell if there was the same man transmitting or not. Sometimes it was off a little bit, and we'd have to retune to get it really clear.
So maybe they're trying to throw y'all off too.
For instance, when we located that big cannon up there in the mountains of Nancy, France, come to find out that there was so many in this net. We knew there was a artillery net, but there was too many people in it. If there was that many people and it was a single net, it must mean it was a long-range gun, and these were the observers calling in when it passed over the projectile. And then the final one, he would phone back where it landed, try to make corrections. So they had every single set in the company on that one. There was a little Japanese boy in our outfit that happened to pick up this signal. And that's where we got our commendation, because then they switched us with work with the Air Corps.
Yeah.
The Air Corps went over and bombed it.
Well, was that the one that would go inside the mountain after it?
They'd come outside, they would fire one round every 15 minutes. It took 15 minutes to load it up. And they had a train car, they had the gun mounted on a great big long flat bed car. Then they had a hoist.
Well,
They had an engine.
Huge shells they used inside that thing.
Well, they had a hoist.
They had one of those up there at
They lift
Aberdeen.
up just the projectile. And when this thing hit, it would wipe out one of our square city blocks. When we located that,
And it was accurate too.
when we located that gun, it was tracking right towards, what's his name, General,
The golf?
no, our General,
I don't know.
Eisenhower. It was tracking right across, straight to his headquarters, and it'd go, and they evacuated.
Didn't that thing have a range like 100 miles or 200 miles, something like that?
Long, but it, either 1 or 2 more, it hit where his headquarters was. Somebody was sighting it.
Yeah.
And he picked it up, and they finally found out, and they fly over, and they come back and report, well, we saw the train tracks going this way, but they didn't see nothing else. What it was doing, it went into the tunnel in the mountain, but it didn't come out the other side. So one pilot went down and bombed it. That stopped it. Well, we never did any more about it, and later on, they gave us a commendation, our whole company commendation, for discovering that gun. So, toward the end of the war, when I was one of the 5 chosen to take a rest, they sent us down the Riviera. That was my first time to see that thing. And the French underground had blown 3 of them on the track. They put explosives in the muzzle and blowed it out. The whole thing was shredded. But that was the biggest thing I had ever
It is
seen.
big.
But it was 3 units in it. The rifle on a big flat bed, then the hoist, great big hoist, and
Yeah.
put the projectile on it.
Was the projectile as big as a man's body?
Big.
Well, it was,
Big
it
one?
The one I saw
It
at
was
the Aberdeen
about-
Proving Grounds
was a little
huge.
bit longer than this
Huge.
table, and about this big.
The barrel was longer than this trailer.
Oh, easily.
It was big, and he went down in sections like that.
Mhm.
And it just huge gun. they had a bigger hoist that'd jack up the barrel, and they could swing it around out like this. But man, that just, and it showed the ammunition car and the locomotive and all
See,
that kind of
another
stuff that
thing,
went with it. Just
when they were doing all that
amazing.
bombing in London, the Germans were shooting over across the channel. We used to listen to them on the radio. And I've heard also on our Army radio receiver, we listened to the battle over in Africa, North Africa. And anyway, it came on that we learned that they were, the people in London were being bombed. And I don't know whether now it's called B1 or B2. I think it's B1, I'm not sure.
Well,
But anyway,
buzz bomb.
no, not the buzz. They were being bombed by the buzz bomb, but also then came after that a newer bomb, more powerful.
That's the B2 then.
Well, either B1 or B2. But when it's saying, you can hear it in the air. I heard them. I heard the buzz bomb. You hear that buzz bomb, and it's going put, 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 put,
Yeah.
put, put. Then you, no more. Then you hear it stopped, the motor would stop, and it's getting ready to descend. One of them exploded near us on a Thanksgiving Day.
The bomb itself had a motor?
Yeah, it had
like a motorcycle motor.
pulse jet motor. And you go
You go put, 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 put,
just
put,
how it
put.
sounded.
But when it stopped, you knew it was getting ready to come down. And it was pretty powerful. Then the next bomb they had to bomb London, and these went all over London, these buzz bombs. And they had them near the French coast. The next bomb was the V1 rocket or V2.
Yeah.
That thing you hear go whee!
Move.
Wow! It wiped out a couple blocks or more. But the next one they developed, now the British had a joke about it. Said if you heard one of them, you're still alive. Because what happened then, you heard the explosion, and then after the explosion you heard the whee coming. And they was really powerful. But the Germans was testing out all these different types of bombs with
Katie, John, what you
live
doing
people.
out here?
What
Okay.
effect they would have. Like they shot people up on rockets, tied on rockets. And then they covered their bodies.
Yeah.
They found evidence of it. And that was one of our projects too, trying to find out the rocket sites over there.
Well, what kind of German airplanes did you personally get to see?
What ones I saw a dogfight one morning. We was in a French girls' school. It was a cold, cold morning. There was thin clouds up there. And I saw some of our American planes flying in formation. You know, huge.
Bombers?
No, pursuit. All of a sudden, one of them planes pulled out of the squad, and the other started shooting at him. I said, what's wrong with them crazy fools? They shied down with the plane, the German plane flying in formation. Messerschmitt.
What, he pulled into formation with them?
Yeah. They were going to shoot him down. The visibility wasn't too hot.
Yeah.
Katie,
They
where's
shot
your
him
hat?
down. Right near us.
What
The
was
other
he in,
one-
a Messerschmitt 109?
The other one I saw was, we was up there and it was snow all over the place, real cold. And one night we was out there, we didn't know that the anti-aircraft blew in during the night. That's when we had all that mist over our truck, you know. And this
And use
plane
camouflage.
come over, we knew the sound, it wasn't Americans, it got to be German.
You can tell by the sound?
That's when we tore out them trucks, that's when I got hung up in my earphone. I forgot about them little earphones. And I was the last one out of the truck, there's four of us in each truck. And I was right next to the cab. I got thinking about them flying those walls and they got this.
They ain't gonna stop much winning on here.
And I told them guys, and we just hit all our buttons and we run. So we knocked the lights out and we slung the door. They was out and I started running till I got the end of my earphone lead. So he was on my neck and I flipped me upside down. We ran out there and all these guns started going off. And we heard, wah! And this thing, boom. It was kind of rising the hill. He was 4 miles from us. They shot him down. So the next day we went over there. And what it was, I don't know what kind you call it, but it was, we had one similar to it. But it had twin fuselage. It was
Oh yeah.
like a tank bomber or something like, a
We
light
had
bomber.
a P-38
It was
Lightning.
two
Theirs
people
was
in
a Heinkel.
It was 2 people in it. And they had tried to bail out, but it was too low.
Yeah.
One of them did, but he got killed too. And they were both young kids, real young, about 19 or so. The other guy hit that frozen hard ground on the back of his head, and that was, when I saw him.
What, he come out of the plane?
Yeah, but he wasn't, I mean, he wasn't free of the plane.
No.
Shoot. He hit that thing and it split his head open down to here. It flattened it like a newspaper. And to see a human head where it's like this, and to see it flatten out like it's a big sheet of newspaper, it's flat.
Because wintertime, the ground was frozen.
And he still had his harness on. That was the next day. Then the people started coming by, you know, the countryside,
Yeah.
and the stragglers, you know, and the people that didn't have home. We watched that guy. Of course, he wasn't going to rot or nothing, he was freezing.
Yeah.
But he had a nice flying suit on, and every day something would be missing till he got down to nothing. I mean, they got everything.
Civilians stripped him.
We went over there, and the plane didn't burn up. It crashed after it was shot down. I got a bunch of souvenirs off of it. I got some throat mics and something else out of the cockpit.
Oh, they have throat mics now?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
These were little, about this long, and it screamed like this and talked. Well, I got them, carried for a while, and then we got the wrist pins out of the engine. And that was all to pieces. We found them on the ground, and that's when we gave them to this man when we got in Luxembourg, and he made rings for each of us. And he took a Luxembourg coin, and it was a seal of Luxembourg, and it was 4 of us sergeants that stayed in his house.
Ben lost
And
that
he made
ring in
it.
high school.
He made
So where is that?
Ben lost
Well,
it.
he made rings for each of us sergeants that stayed in his house. He later became the mayor, appointed by the American military.
Well, those, do you remember, Daddy, if those had rotary engines in them, or were they inline?
They were in line.
Were they? Probably Mercedes then. I think that's a Hinkle fighter
These
bomber.
engines were, I mean, the propellers were at the back.
A pusher?
I believe. I'm not sure. But the canopy was sort of oval-like.
So it wasn't a squared canopy like a 109?
No, it was like a frame window.
Did you ever see a 109?
Well, that one that was shot down in that formation.
So that one was.
Now, I saw a bunch of them when we was going across going into Frankfurt, and that's when the Germans had run out of gasoline, and we just about run out of gasoline, and we was going up the super highway, and I looked on each side of the super highway back in the woods, and I guess it was Hinkles in there, because there was every conceivable type of plane on each side of the road. They'd stashed back in there.
Yeah.
They're getting ready to make one more big push, but they didn't have no gasoline to get them off the ground.
Well, do you know what a Focke-Wulf 190 looks like?
No, but I
It's
remember.
rounded. Instead of, you know, the Messerschmitt had an inline engine and a real thin fuselage. This one had a radial engine and it was rounded. That was one of their real quality fighters that they had.
Well, I wouldn't do it all different types. If they had a crosswind, I knew it was a German plane.
Weren't the French for a while fighting or siding with the Germans after the Germans took them over? Wasn't that the Vichy French or something?
Vichy, but
Vichy?
that was the Vichy government. That didn't mean the people. The people, the ones that was conscripted in the army.
Well, they were
was
French,
fighting.
weren't they?
They were French, but it was just like they were. What do you call them? Not capitulators. What do you call them? People that side in with the
Traitors?
Well, they were traitors, but it was something else they called them.
Sympathize?
Well, that's another synonym for the same thing, but there was some specific word given to them. Not conspirators, but they were traitors, but it didn't mean all the people.
But that's what Vichy meant.
Vichy was that government that collaborated. They were collaborators.
Okay.
And these officials in these cities, that's where the Germans got control through the power of the city officials. And they would declare a law, and the people that lived in that city were under the penalty of that law.
Well, I know when we went into Algiers, we fought French there, but they didn't put up
But
much
the
of a fight.
French, the Free French, the underground, there's people there hiding soldiers all the time, and flyers trying to get back to England. They were doing that all the time. Now the women that was collaborating with the Germans, you can understand, some of them were starved to death, some of them didn't care. They think about themselves. But when they catch them in them villages, the people of that village where they came from would shave their heads. They didn't harm them, they may beat them, but they didn't kill them. But they shaved their heads and made them stay where they could be seen as a sign of shame.
How far into Germany did y'all go?
Well, some parts of my outfit, they went south of Berlin, but not me. I went, you know, you could follow Patton's tank, and we went up north, and I forgot, I had looked at the map, how far north we went, and they start swinging back. But I went through most of the recognizable towns, you know, like southern Germany, and like when I left my company, they went on to I was down on point. I got a postcard from one of the boys in the company in this place. It's on top of a mountain, a big castle where they was living.
Birch's Garden?
No,
Not there?
no, it's prettier in that place. I can't think of it now, but it wasn't the line. But I've been through it. Well, where they held the trial, I wouldn't do that.
Nuremberg?
Nuremberg. All that down there. I had them marked on the map.
So you was mostly just into France and Western Germany and
No,
Northern
Eastern
Europe.
Germany, East and Southeastern Germany. I didn't go into Western Germany. That's where the British were. The British were on the west, always on the, like when we landed at Cherbourg Peninsula, the British was over to the north and the west. We was to the down below. They stay along the coast.
Yeah.
The idea was they were to be a pivot. Patton was going to swing and cut off, and then they came in and did the mop up. See, they moved up the coastline. We was moving down the coastline. Like we came in Malo, St. Malo, and Cherbourg, and not 19s. We were all through there going down south, and then we swung back up. And like we come in to find out north was Luxembourg, Frankfurt on the Main, Koblenz or someplace. And then we started going back down, and we made several back and forth movements in there.
Well, we're at the Battle of the Bulge where the Germans made their offensive push. Was that Americans there on that line, or was that mostly English and French?
No, that was us.
Was it American? So they pushed in like that, and y'all were able to cut them off.
The British were still up on, well, a little bit south of Belgium, you know. But they're still along the coastline. They didn't start going inland until they got at Belgium or past Belgium. They started coming in. Now there was units, of course.
Well, see, that was 44 D-Day, right? June 6th. When did the Battle of the Bulge take place? Late 44, early 45?
I couldn't tell you, Steve. Just later in the battle, we moved on.
Well, when did you get overseas?
That's when.
What year did you go overseas?
1943 or 44. I don't remember the date. I'm not no good at memory. I just remember sketches and things, and I couldn't tell you the exact movement of things. But the Battle of the Bulge is a period of time. Germany knew from the start. The Red Army knew from the start. The first few days of the battle was lost to Germany.
Yeah.
It was difficult, but Hitler never would concede. But in the Battle of the Bulge is that period of time when they started infiltrating our lines. That's when we had to have a heavy security and a password that was adhered to keep them out, because they had dressed like us. Some of them that lived in America, they went to American colleges, they just spoke perfect English, and they infiltrated, and that's what cut off the.
Well, that was a last-ditch effort on the Nazi part, on the Wehrmacht's part.
And they was trying to outguss us where to send the bulk and concentration of their tanks.
Yeah.
Because they knew their tanks until they got that, is it Sherman, our best tank? General Sherman? Until they got there, they was putting the fire out because they had speed, blitzkrieg, and they had power and speed.
Mom said the first time you went on that secret mission, you left January of 43 and you were gone 3 months. But then you left again January of 44 and then you were gone for
I guess it was more like February of 44.
February
We
of
went to
44.
Bermuda.
You were gone for the
The
duration.
first time we went to Bermuda.
February of 43 on the secret mission? Okay.
Yeah. Well, see, we went to Bermuda.
Were y'all looking for subs down there?
We didn't know what was looking for. We thought we'd go on vacation because we landed on the island of Hamilton Island, the biggest one.
Because that's what Randy and I was talking about. I just imagine y'all was down there at the
Well,
submarine.
they sent the whole direction finding platoon and a part of the, I keep wanting to call it receiver, intercept.
Intercept.
The intercept platoon, and then supplying aids. And we were to supplement another American unit that was already there, had been there. We didn't tell what was there for. They told us, they didn't tell us it was a training mission. They said that we had a mission. They didn't tell us what it's supposed to do. We're going to be doing the same thing we've been doing all the time, but we had to be more accurate. It was to prepare us and improve our code speed. And we'd be working with
I'll bet
mills.
y'all was down there trying to pick up sub transmissions.
Well, let me finish. And we was there for 3 months. And they start out spreading us out with direction finders on the various islands. There's 23 of them there. And sometimes we go out and on our off duty, we take sunbaths. I got almost brown and red. And we look out over the ocean, it'd be just as beautiful and crystal blue. It'd be clear. Next day we look out and there'd be hundreds of those ships. We'd ask, nobody tell us what they were, who they were, or what. Next day we'd look out, wouldn't be a sign of them. And all the time we was taking messages, and a lot of it, like I told you, we was copying Rommel's movements over in the North African desert. And we'd start taking bearings. And we'd send these bearings without us knowing where the bearings were being shot, but we had to hide it. These bearings kept going back to the United States. We came back home then after 3 months. The next time we went, like Nala said, was when they sent us before the war, we were officially in it.
Yeah.
Or just at that time. That's when I went up to Scotland, landed in Scotland. But we didn't learn and understand what we were doing in Bermuda until we was way up in northern Germany. Then we were told what we had done. When we was on that first convoy going to Bermuda, 2 rows of ships, and we was on one of them little dinky Liberty ships. At that time, there was a lot of submarines there out there along the eastern coast.
Yeah.
Around the Carolinas and Cape Hatteras. They were sinking a lot of American ships. A lot of tonnage went down. They couldn't figure out how they were fueling. And they thought maybe there was tanker subs out there or something. But they didn't tell us until after we was up in Germany what was taking place. The Germans were also dropping off saboteurs on our coastline. And there was a lot of big scare about that. So when we got there, they told us what was happening. We were taking bearings, and these bearings were coming from submarines from our east coast. What they had done prior to being active in the water, they had went into our intercoast waterways and set up fuel reservoirs. And they were coming inside of our coast, intercoast waterways, and refueling and going out and sinking ships. And one of them followed us in our convoy the first time going to Bermuda. And the next time we went, we were going to the war then, we landed to Scotland. We was in a convoy of 2 rows of ships. They followed us there. But they didn't sink as many ships then as they did before. But they told us later that there was a submarine, and we was the last ship. One more would be on this one, the last ship here of the column. Next more would be on this. And later, before we landed in Scotland, we was talking about it one day, and there was a flat top 3 ships ahead of us too. Had planes on it. And that thing had blitzed over the side, and they had a guy out there with a rope tied on him. A guard, I don't know what for. But we was in the storm on that trip.
There was a carrier there?
Yeah, he was bouncing.
You never hearing about any carriers in the Atlantic.
Well, there was one there,
Was it British or American?
American.
What?
And there was,
I don't know that.
There was waves that was big as any 5 or 6, 7-story building you want to see. Ocean, you look up like it'd be water. You look down at the water, just be everywhere. And you realize how helpless you, just like a little leaf at a storm. That boy was out there, we'd see him through the mist and every now and then, and he's bouncing all over the deck with a rope tied on him. That was stupid. They lost some in. They lost some of them on this trip over too. But later on we got to talking to these sailors, and he said, well, y'all had a favorite position. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, y'all was on Dead Man's Corner. He said, that's the corner that the subs always pick off the ships. And they would get substituted. One morning was here, and next morning was over there.
Not too many ways you can fight against a submarine when you're on the ship.
But I tell you,
Well, that's surprising because you never hear or see any movies about carriers in the North Atlantic.
well, I tell you, that was the biggest.
I didn't even know they had any.
That was the biggest bunch of ships I ever seen in my life. Just the convoy was in, but the second time that I saw that many ships was in Bermuda, and they was preparing. They was supply ships.
Well, did they ever take out those fuel dumps?
Yeah, they were destroyed. Then we learned that around the United States there was radar. They call them radar roses. They went, and we didn't know that. Never heard that before in our lives. But it was all around the coast of the United States, the West Coast and the East Coast. And what we was doing was confirming, because they couldn't believe that somebody, and it was too close to them too. And we had to get back and shoot back where it'd be more accurate.
Yeah.
And everyone pinpointed it was in the United States ocean waterway.
The Germans were smart, man.
They were, really. But their smartness was turned to evil.
Yeah.
Just like, what gets me, some of these things that they convict them for as war criminals, like these medical doctors, some of this knowledge that came from those experiments are being used in advancement of medicine today.
Yeah. But they were just so diabolical in the way they did stuff.
They were.
But they were brilliant.
Just like when they tied them men on that rocket. They wanted to find out what effect it had on the human body when it accelerated.
Yeah.
See, well, what are we doing here going into space? From that we learned that you must, you experience so many G's, the force on the body and certain things happen to the body chemistry.
Yeah.
So we learned that from them. And we started dividing up all them scientists after the war was over. We came out with a bunch of, I don't know what kind of science you'd call them, but they had to do with sound and plastics. I forgot what they call them. Not physical science, well it is, but it's another word for it. The scientific name of it. And where some of them got atomic scientists, and later we got,
well, us and Russia split
General
them.
von Braun, we've got him later, but the British got the big grab, and so did Russia. They got the biggest grab of it. It was a woman scientist that was in the atomic.
And they had some brilliant ones. Well, look at the rocket. They were the first ones to use jets in combat. They had like 4 or 5 different types of jet aircraft. They developed that buzz bomb. All it was
If
a
they
pulse
had
jet.
been able to prolong, if they had had enough supplies,
Fuel.
just to last a little bit longer, the story might have been different.
They'd have kicked our butt if they'd had fuel. If those P-38 just talking about, if they hadn't taken out that oil depot in Romania or Bulgaria or wherever that is that the Germans used, they'd have had the fuel. Them Panthers could have kept right pushing in that battle of the
One of
Bulge.
the best things they did, and I saw this, the bombing of Remagen,
Remagen?
where the ball bearing factory was.
Right.
That really put a kink in their war machine. But the Germans...
Well,
had
the
been-
Americans did that. The British, they would only bomb at nighttime, and we were the first ones to employ daylight altitude bombing. We lost a ton of airplanes doing it, but that's the only thing that really won that.
The Americans had quite a bit of ingenuity, but the Americans are just like what I typify them as like a National Guardian, emergency soldier. And being emergency soldiers, we've accomplished a whole lot in wars. Whereas the Germans were professional. When you came a certain age in Germany, you automatically were conscripted into the army and you stayed for 7 years, no matter who you were. They were trained.
Well, see, all of our enemies have always been better equipped, better prepared for a long, drawn-out conflict. Well, we're not. We never have been good at long conflicts.
Because our whole concept is not based
on military.
On being a warring nation.
Yeah. Well, that's, you know, you made the best reference when you said we're more like National Guard. We want to get in and get it over with quick.
Those
and get
people
out
over there are still the same way.
Yeah.
They haven't learned one lesson out of the whole thing. They've got to have a leader. Once they got a leader, they can do quite a bit. Now, all this stirring around in the EC over there, they're looking for a dominant leader.
They're looking for a leader again.
And that's all they need. And you look in Italy, when the Pope gets out there, masses of people. There's no place in the United States except Washington, D.C. out in front of where the fountain is, where masses of people can congregate at one time. They got to look up to something.
Now, ain't that many people going to get together for Bush?
The Negroes will.
But they're just waiting for another leader to pop up. And once they get him, that's when they're going to
Well, I'll tell you, when the Germans, and this was back when the war was just ending, they were negotiating. They were trying their very best to make
sugar live.
Oh, you gotta spin it over there behind you. I was fixing to fill it up before I forgot what I was doing.
The Germans wanted the Americans to agree, that is, all the European nations, to retool their guns so they would have a common ammunition. Would have the same caliber as they all had, which included the same caliber as the Germans had. And that's when our weapons went to kaput. We went away from the Springfield and the Rams and 45s and all this, and we got them pea shooters.
We got that useless crap that we got now. Well, I disagree with you on one thing. You said they didn't learn it. The Germans didn't learn anything from that war. I think they did, and I think Japan did too, because the next time they'll kick our butt royally.
Because that's why they're rearming.
See, both Germany and Japan didn't really want to get tied in with us.
What they didn't learn is to live in such a democratic way that individuals.
No, they haven't learned that.
They've got to have a leader, so they haven't learned that. They have to have someone to lead them. Once they have that, in other words, the difference in the United States, we don't have enough nationalism in us. We call it patriotism.
Yeah.
Not no more. Used to. Rally behind the flag, believing for the country, pride in the accomplishments of it. But then people are fanatics of that.
Yep.
And they still are. They've got to have pumped and all that stuff.
I like how the class is very nice.
Just like in the paper here, there was a small article a few days ago that in Mexico, now it has become a law, the president allowed the bill to be passed in an election, that the Catholics can proceed, have their holiday, their festive days on the streets. They are given complete, total religious freedom, except they cannot own, the church cannot own any of the historic cathedrals or any of the valuables of the church that still belongs to the state. They cannot use the authority of the state. Nor can the state tell them what to do. But they still control how they shall act. So, but to a degree, it's coming about. There's a little bit of democracy. And they give
You can't give those people too much democracy, though, Daddy.
No, that's why they got to have a leader.
I mean, really, the Koreans are the same way. The Filipinos are the same way.
All of them are.
You give them a little, because they've not had it, they
We
don't know
speak
how
their
to.
language. Now, you'd be surprised how someone complain about the king and the queen and all these functions, but they love that.
Well, look how they kiss their butt when they come over here.
It's a national national pride. And if you as an American had witnessed any of these
Almost
things,
time to
like
open the
all you have,
presents.
and I have too, to see some of these processions and things, it kind of gives you a patriotic feeling that which they have. But I wouldn't want to live under that type of rule.
No. I don't need no queen. I got a wife anyway. It's just
They pay
bad.
dearly for those that royalty.